The 1960s in California was a decade of rapid economic expansion and what many regard as the heyday of public education in the state. California schools from kindergarten through university were the envy of the nation. Anchored by a strong labor movement, union organizing moved into the public sector. With financial assistance from the UAW, CFT was able to establish offices, hire staff, and begin a decade of solid growth. By 1970, the organization had multiplied fivefold, from a few thousand to nearly 15,000 members. Paraprofessionals organized CFT's first classified chapter in San Francisco in 1969, and in 1971, community college faculty formed a council led by Hy Weintraub. Much of what we take for granted as the legal framework for teacher and worker rights in public education was won in the 1960s and the 1970s, with CFT taking a leadership role in nearly every struggle. In 1961, CFT supported the Brown Act, which granted public employees the right to join an employee organization. CFT also won laws that led to the professionalization of teacher training programs, the right for new teachers to a hearing before dismissal, and the right of teachers to publicly criticize their school districts. For these achievements, the CFT came to be known as the ACLU of teachers. But this was still an era of great risk for activists. CFT's legendary leader Raoul Tilley noted that enrolling in his own union in 1960,
it was like joining the French underground in Paris in 1943. We had more secret members than we had public members.
The 60s was a decade of social change. CFT members joined the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, and supported the United Farm Workers. CFT was also one of the first unions to take a stand against the war in Vietnam. As progressive causes swept the nation, the CFT took its next step. In 1966, the first teacher strike in California erupted in Richmond. The teachers' demands included integration of the school district. In 1967, thousands of educators and supporters marched in Sacramento in response to Governor Ronald Reagan's attempt to slash the public education budget. Later that year, delegates at the CFT convention elected Pasadena high school teacher Raoul Tilley as president.
In the classroom, we're worried about class size, teacher-pupil ratio, supportive auxiliary services within the classroom, an honest mechanism to assess students' needs and find out what they are and what's needed.
Tilley was a skilled organizer and orator who barnstormed California to establish collective bargaining for teachers and classified staff. He helped double the size of CFT during his first 2 years in office. Throughout the 1970s, a wave of educator strikes swept the state. In response, Senator George Moscone carried a bargaining bill that made it to the governor's desk in 1973, where it was then vetoed by Ronald Reagan. As teacher militancy grew, CFT's efforts to establish collective bargaining finally paid off in 1975 when Governor Jerry Brown signed the Educational Employment Relations Act. In 1978, the same rights were won by university employees. During the next few years, the CFT won dozens of union representation elections, including those in large urban districts. Collective bargaining, a central goal of the CFT that had been pursued by generations of teacher unionists since 1919, had been won. But as future CFT President Miles Myers said,
"We didn't pin our existence on a law. We were in existence before the law. We acted as if we could bargain before there was a bargaining law. And so it's a collective action that's behind it, fundamentally."